Hello and welcome to Rally FC. That's right, Rally FC, the Ghostwriter podcast. Apparently, this podcast is very much like Ghostwriter in that he has a very diverse group of people, but a very small group of people that know about him. But yes, my name is Clay Johnson. I am your host, and I am not here alone. I am here with my good friend, Kevin Kreisel. How you doing today, Kevin?
I'm great, Clay. Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be on the show. And I hear we also have a guest on the show as well. Ghostwriter, is he or she or it part of your show today, Clay?
I mean, one can only hope. I mean, he has not yet chosen to write to me.
Okay.
You know, he might just be chilling out, listening. As actually, I don't think a podcast is really Ghostwriter's medium.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe you're right, because there's not really like a for sale board to rearrange or some sort of sign or
there's no written there's nothing written down for him to read. It was really inconsiderate of me to do this, to be honest.
The only thing that they could rearrange is just the letters of your name or my name on the screen. That would be about it, and that's pretty limited. Clay.
Yeah.
It's Clay and Kevin. There's not a lot to go with there. So
No.
letters wise, people wise, different story, but letters wise, not so much. So,
Yeah.
Anywho, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Well, you've led me right into talking about this show, so I do have to ask you.
Yep.
It's a question I ask all my guests. So, Kevin, how much do you hate me for asking you to watch this show?
So here's the thing. This was the first time I had ever watched this show.
Sure.
No.
I get that.
This is I'm a scotch older than you. So therefore the shows I would have watched that would have been equivalent would have been like, 10 years before that.
Okay.
But I enjoyed it. It's different. It was I look at it from the point of view of we're reviewing a show that was written for kids.
Yes.
But now reviewing it as adults, which is extremely popular right now, podcast wise. So wherever you got this concept, Clay, it's amazing. But no, it was. I don't hate you for making me see the show. It's something that I think, and I also support on PBS and public broadcasting, and it has some concepts in there.
It
that I like
does.
That I like quite a bit. Yeah.
I mean, we talk about all the time how for the time that this came out in the early 90s. It was actually a very progressive show, very diverse, very much. I mean, some of the things that it tried to address, it was a little timid about. But for the most part, it's at least, giving voice to a lot of things that at the time were not being given voice to.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. There's a highly diverse cast.
Yeah.
There's potential budding relationships.
That's something we'll want to talk about that.
I know, but I'm just saying that there's also, but there's a lot. There's, they cover, and we'll cover it probably a little bit. They cover a lot of adult themes, but in a way that kids can understand, and that's actually telegraphed quite a bit in the show. So, your kids as an audience can understand what the adults are talking about. So that's pretty good. It's a good way of doing it.
Yeah. And, I will say that I think when it comes to addressing those adult topics, it can be a little bit of a mixed bag. I think occasionally they sell their audience short, and sometimes they hit it right on the head. So it's, but, like you said, at least they're addressing it.
Yeah, and could I give an example of that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, like when they're going over the summons for court, right?
Sure. Right.
And where it was thrown on the floor, the kids pick it up, and then the kids very slowly and methodically go through. And
the show likes to take its time when it comes to its lessons.
To try and can make a sandwich and come back while you discover a word.
Yes.
But they make an effort to try to flip a complicated word or words, especially in the legalese, into something that be more applicable to kids.
Yeah.
To do that and trying to put it all together.
To be honest, that scene could be used for a lot of adults when it comes to legal documents. Just search for the words you know. Figure it out.
Sure. Yeah. I think that wouldn't just work on legal documents, Clay. It would work on most documents for some adults.
It's true. Yes. It's true. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into this episode. Right. We are talking today about story arc number 10, Get the Message, which, to be honest, is such an ambiguous title. I still really am not sure what that title is supposed to mean in terms of this episode. I mean, I guess it's like kind of like the idea that Ghostwriter had once the team finally got back together of, like it's about time, kind of like I guess like a get the message. Or is it like we're just disconnected, so we're not getting the message? It's a really ambiguous title. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
And I would say it's more along the second example that you did.
Sure.
And it's only because I very much try to spin positive.
Sure.
But
sure.
I think it's like that, but it's also that is what Ghostwriter does is, I don't know, read messages and deliver them. That's part of his MO. That's what he does.
Right.
That's his main job. So I mean, if you're going to give a job to Ghostwriter, that's it. And I think at least in the first 2 episodes of the 4 that put together this arc, the gang is pretty disjointed.
Yeah.
And they are separated on, at least from a TV point of view, the far corners of the earth.
Right.
And not really talking to each other. And, it's something that Ghostwriter is the thread that keeps them together. And so is friendship type of thing. So I think that's the direction that they're going. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean, like you mentioned, this episode is really dealing with a conflict within the team. Basically, one of the first scenes that we see in this episode is Max is outside with his instruments. Max, Lenny's deadbeat dad, has returned, and he is outside loading up the van for his band, and he's putting the instruments on in the van. One can only assume that if things had not gone the way they were, then Liddy would not have seen her dad for probably the rest of the year. But as it turns out, while he's loading the instruments into the back of his van, a van plows into them. We find out that vehicle was driven by Mr. Fernandez, who claims that someone ran out in front of him. But this starts a big conflict between the two of them, which in turn starts a big conflict between their children, which then ravels out to the rest of the team. And so basically the whole episode, really almost exclusively Jamal and Ghostwriter are trying to get them to communicate again. All the while, Jamal is looking for this mystery person that caused the accident in the first place.
Yep. And I got to give it to Jamal's energy and optimism. He is the only one that's the cheerleader, the rah-rah. I'm like, we got to do this. We got to go here. I'll be the detective. And he's taking notes in the journal and like, he's all over it, and everyone else is honestly moping around. And
Jamal is really earning his stripes in this episode. I pick on Jamal all the time because he's just kind of a dork.
Ready for one dynamite, dude?
Yeah, little cheesy is Jamal, but also the team's number 1 cheerleader, and really the only one not affected or refusing to be affected by this fight. They're all affected in different reasons. Like I said, the main conflict happens when Mr. Fernandez runs his vehicle into Max's instruments. Now, I will say, as good, I think, as dramatically as they do in making this fight feel and seem real, they didn't do a great job physically making, like, if you really pay attention to the scene where Mr. Fernandez drives his vehicle into Max's instruments, you can actually see when he veers, there's no guy. Which kind of messes up the whole mystery.
A really, really fast guy. It was,
yeah.
It was the Flash.
I'm like, okay, maybe they're saying that, he like barely ducked on the opposite side of where we could see, but if you're really paying attention, you can kind of see when the vehicle turns, and there's not a guy, but with that aside, and also the fact that if you look at Max is freaking out because the damage to his instruments is going to be $10,000 and all this kind of stuff. He's like, he destroyed my instruments. They didn't look destroyed.
Now, also, they didn't open one case of it at all. Now, the cases might have been damaged.
True,
but you're right.
And I'm thinking there might be some dents here and there. Maybe if a guitar had been out or something, and we had seen it actually, get destroyed. But I'm assuming that honestly, those were all empty cases that they couldn't actually afford instruments.
And what happened to the guy that was loading the van? Like that because he was an extra. Just loading, and we never see him again.
I think that was the friend Mark that they mentioned several times, but we never actually see.
We never actually see him though. Yeah.
But
that's a witness, and he never shows up at all. Anyway, just
I mean,
it's like just
Jamal mentions Jamal mentions that he talked to him, but we never see it happen. Because of this this accident that, didn't destroy instruments, the whole rest of the team is now fractured. Tina happened to actually be on the scene and was filming Max, which is how we have the video of the accident, filming Max when it all happened. And because she was on the scene, she actually talked to a reporter. And her words then end up in a newspaper, and because it was a scary scene, she said that, and because she said that, Gabby gets upset, so the two of them are fighting, and obviously Alex and Lenny are fighting because, of what's going on with their dad, and then Rob basically just checks out because... he can't deal with conflict. Also, he has he joined the team like later than everybody else because he moved a lot. He actually has only been there for like I guess a year within the setting of the show. So he would lose friends a lot. So he's kind of dealing with his own stuff. So it really is only Jamal trying to figure all of this stuff out.
And I will give it to Tina with her camera skills. Yeah, and what appears to be an old school VHS video camera.
Yes.
So which, by the way, segue, I still have one.
Oh, nice.
But again, I keep all the tech, even the really old tech. Sure. But it's still and so like I have in my notes here that I love Tina's camera work and her attention to detail there. But like right halfway through the episode, to your point, she just gives up, gives the tape to Jamal, calls it a day, and that's it. And like, no, your tape was critical to helping people and helping this case. But
and you know that is one thing that they've definitely set up with Tina is that she's usually the professional, level-headed one, but because her best friend Gabby is basically shutting down and. I will say I love Gabby, but Gabby is 100% not listening to her. And spoilers, when eventually the team does, reconcile, Tina is the one that says that she wasn't thinking about Gabby's feelings. And while that is probably true, Gabby also wasn't thinking about the way Tina must have felt in that situation, because she was there when it happened. She was literally facing the vehicle coming towards her. And all she was doing was expressing that she was afraid. She was afraid for her life.
Tina Nguyen, who was at the scene, reported, "I thought he was going to run us over. I've never been so scared in my whole life."
Gabby, I'm sorry.
Are you sorry? You tell the whole world my father drives like a maniac and you're sorry?
I didn't say that. I just told the reporter.
I thought you were my best friend, Tina. Friends are supposed to stand up for each other.
I am your best friend. I just had to tell the truth.
You're just like Lenny, accusing my dad. Don't even talk to me, Tina. I don't want to speak to you as long as I live.
So, obviously, emotions are frayed.
Sure.
I will say, obviously, Gabby isn't really actually even paying attention to what she just read, because she puts words in Tina's mouth by saying, "You said my dad was driving like a maniac," which is not what Tina said. No. That is actually what the woman before her in the clip said. And I will say there seems to be a conspiracy against Tina, because if you watched the recaps for, I think, like the next episode, the guy that does the recaps also says that Tina said that. And I'm like, dude,
drama.
I'm like,
so
you're just trying to stir up this fight. It's like, whose side are you on?
Whose side is the voiceover guy on? Come on. Yeah,
you know what? I think that he is secretly a conspirator of Calvin's. Because Calvin Ferguson makes another appearance in this story. Calvin, this is actually only, I think, the fourth appearance, the third full story he's been in. And, he's often there, to be the red herring. Although in this one, the mystery really isn't what is the driving force of the story. They're not really trying to get you to figure out who did this, because the clues aren't really there for you to figure it out. It's more about the team's conflict. But because the team's conflict is kind of the main thing driving this, there isn't really a B plot, but I think the closest thing to it is Calvin basically trying to, number one, figure out who and what GW is what he calls him at the beginning of the episode. Because in the last story, this is kind of a bit of a trilogy, if you pay attention, because the last story, while not feeding directly into this one, is heavily connected to it. Because in the last story, he found out about kind of, the team's secret pen pal, GW, as what he found out they called him in that episode. And in this episode, he starts to find out more. But as it's going, as part of, trying to figure that out, he also basically stirs the shit to try to complete the split up of the team. Tries several dirty, underhanded tricks to do that, and we'll touch on those as they come up.
I definitely listed a few when we get there.
Yeah.
I do have my favorites of the Calvin-esque, and his little pet bird too. So I mean,
yes, Calvin and Attila. This is one of the few episodes that we actually see Attila in. I think in the last one they said that she was sick or getting cleaned or something like that. But yeah, we also, like I mentioned, the whole accident is between Mr. Fernandez, who honestly we see quite often. He's not in every single storyline, but he's in a lot. And then we also have Lenny's dad, Max, who, if you may have picked up in my recap of the story, is rarely around. We have decided long ago that Lenny is apparently an emancipated minor whose dad just kind of checks in whenever he's in town. Because most of the time...
With the band, apparently, yes.
Yes. Because most of the time, we see her in that apartment all by herself. Hanging out with the team, doing whatever she wants, just living her bohemian lifestyle, writing her own music. But, her dad is obviously here in this episode. And this is a silly little thing, but any story that he's in, he has a little nickname that he calls her. And I haven't brought it up because I've been trying to figure out what he is calling her from his first appearance. Because I've decided in this, at least in this story, it is Bips. At least that is firmly what it sounds like.
It does sound like that, yeah.
But I'm like, because, before I was like, is it Bips? Is it Bibs with a B? There was at least once that it sounded like he was calling her Babes, which I'm like, that's a little weird for your daughter.
Sure.
But, in this one, I was like, no, it's Bips. I'm not sure what that comes from. That little pet name is never explained. But it's one of those things that I'm like, did the actor just decide to start calling her that? That's a really weird thing to throw in.
Is there any other context to where where Max calls her that? Like early episodes, like it refers to her mom or something?
Not with any explanation. No, he's just like every once in a while, he'll just say, "Oh, don't worry about it, Bips," and it's like.
But yeah, it could have been an actor choice, and
what is that? What's that mean?
They kept it as canon after that.
Yeah, because I swear he's probably called her that in every episode he's been in. He's not in a lot, but the ones that he is in, that is the name that he calls her, and I'm just like, I don't know what that means.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah. But
go figure.
Yeah, but in one of their scenes, he actually does a very parent-like thing, and actually, he's trying to hide from her all of the difficulties because obviously, his instruments that were destroyed.
Destroyed. Quotation marks. Yes.
I was about to say quotation marks don't work so well. On audio.
If you describe them, though, air quotation marks.
Destroyed.
There you go. Yes.
Are obviously his livelihood because he is a musician. And, I mean...
Allegedly, yes.
Right, exactly. I do have to wonder, though, if he's got a second job, because the whole setup for the gig he was going to is that he had a meeting with a producer for a recording contract. And I'm like, oh, so you don't have one already? How are you making money to support your daughter in New York City?
Yes, but you're right. In New York, it would be difficult. Friends like to have in a nice apartment and be just a part-time musician.
Yeah, I mean, either that or they've got the most understanding landlord ever. Yeah. I mean, he does. Apparently, Lenny's paying the rent most of the time, so. I don't know what's
maybe
going
they get
on.
discounts on the groceries. Yeah. Discount on the groceries downstairs. Who knows?
Yeah,
it's on the bodega. Yeah,
yeah, because they all have the same landlord, Max and Mr. Fernandez.
Yep.
So yeah, but yeah, so Max gives Lenny a lesson on insurance. Explaining how, half of replacing the instruments can actually be paid by Mr. Fernandez's insurance, but it's not going to cover the whole amount. And so he needs, the rest of the money from somewhere. And as we have discussed in previous episodes, the Fernandezes are not exactly wealthy. So that's a very difficult thing for Mr. Fernandez to do, an extra $5,000. So obviously, that's not great for their conflict. But it seems in this scene, and of course it's done in a way that Lenny wouldn't exactly know what's going on, but any adult would. It seems like Max is going to sue Mr. Fernandez.
If I may, Max even admits, as an adult would, he let his premiums lapse, but of course boiled that all down to kid speak, but didn't.
Right. Because
not going to go into
his insurance
premiums. Yeah.
Right. Because he didn't have insurance on the instruments. Because, like you said, he let his payments.
Because that would have helped pay for it too, along with a claim from Mr. Fernandez's insurance. But of course, because Max let his premiums lapse on his instruments.
Yeah.
That had an exact. Yeah.
So it just makes me wonder who's really being the irresponsible one here, Max.
Thank you. That's where I was trying to go with that. Yeah. So you didn't. If you had just paid your premiums, you could have got the instruments back and episode over in like 5 minutes. So, there we go. Yeah. Ghostwriter could take the day off then.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah. So, obviously there is still conflict. And like we said, eventually we find out towards the end of the episode that Max is going to be suing Mr. Fernandez.
Yep.
Which is the scene that you brought up earlier where the lawsuit gets turned into a lesson.
And I have an example here, Clay. Disbursements, and here's a quote from the show.
Okay.
Is that like dissing someone?
Yes. That's exactly what it's like.
Yes, it is. It actually, sure, that sounds right. That checks out. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, man.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah. I was in the contract. Yeah. I was like, all right, I like that one. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yep.
But before this, we actually get a couple of scenes. Like I mentioned, Calvin is trying to extend the gap within the team and also trying to get information on GW. So he decides, because he actually watches Rob and Jamal communicate with Ghostwriter, but to him it just looks like a bunch of questions on their end, and he's very confused as to what answers they got. So he knows enough to realize that they must be getting answers somehow. So he, basically just trying to get more information, hooks up one computer to another in the computer lab and pretends to be Ghostwriter to Rob, who then lets out the big secret and calls him Ghostwriter. Dun, dun, dun. Dun.
And kudos to Calvin's reprogramming skills there with early 90s, cable wires from the computers back then. So, just switching a couple of things, and the camera was very close up on the specific tags of the chords and where everything was going. So, great job, Calvin, reprogramming the computer lab.
I mean,
just make sure you put it back when you're done. I'm just saying for right now, it was good. Yeah.
Well, I will say they mention later that Calvin left the computer lab before Rob did. So he just left it like that.
Yep. Why isn't this working? I don't know
what's going on. Why does everything I type on this computer show up on that one? I don't know.
You got me. Yep. And in that conversation I had, because this show is early 90s, Ghostwriter says, "I'll be there for you," which is a line from Friends. So it's there for you. Yep, copyright right there.
I'm sure that's where they got it.
Yes, because
they were watching Ghostwriter and was like, "That's catchy."
The writers were watching, what we should put in the dialogue. That sounds like this. That's the theme for the entire arc. And then
Well,
so
that band really only were famous for that song.
Yeah, the Rembrandts, right? Yeah, it's the one song. Yeah,
they have
play that one song again,
would
would you? Yeah, that'd be great.
Every time they're just like, "Thanks, Ghostwriter."
Yeah. Hey, we got a call out in Ghostwriter, guys, on PBS. Great.
Oh, but we also, as we're building up the tension between these two groups, we have mentioned the fact that there is tension between Gabby and Tina.
Yep.
But here's the thing, and they play a scene that shows that Alex is thinking about Tina, because in previous episodes they have kind of established a relationship. It's been a little it's been one of those things that it's like, is this a relationship? Is it not? Because in the first time that Alex asked Tina out, he basically wrote a script and gave it to Tina and asked her out in the script. And she responded, when he asked her out, she responded by saying, "No, I can't. I'd rather go with my good friend Alex." And it was like, "Aw." But she also said good friend. So it's like, okay, is it a date then? And then in the next story, if you noticed in that flashback, he kissed her while they were in the back of a truck full of garbage, which she said she liked. And then in more recent episodes, actually the episode right after that, they completely ignored each other. And then the last
as you would, yeah.
Yeah, then the last episode, they had kind of a pleasant encounter, but when Alex kissed Tina on the cheek and said thank you, she reacted 0 and just said, "You don't have to thank me." And then they ran off while holding hands. Real confusing. So now that there is a big conflict in this group, did Tina go to Alex and make sure that that he and his family were okay? No. When Gabby and Tina had their fight, did Alex talk to her at all? Nope. So aside from this one little flashback that we get to this kissing scene, and obviously Alex looking moony while Gabby is also saying that she misses Tina, we really get no hint of this relationship. We really could have lifted out that scene and been none the wiser.
Yeah. Yeah, it really didn't advance the plot that much.
No. I honestly think that they realized towards the end of the day that they had not mentioned at all the relationship that they had just tried to set back up in the previous story. So they went back and shot this scene without putting Tina in it, which still doesn't solve anything. Yeah.
You know what they need? I think they need a ghostwriter. I think that would help.
Yeah, they need some communication.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm just saying the way this was handled.
That's not good enough, Alex.
No, really not.
No, it really wasn't.
No, just really falling down on the job there.
Yeah, I would watch out for random trucks on the road that are trying to swerve around people. That's just me, though.
That's another thing. She was afraid for her life, and he didn't ask her if she was okay. Nothing. Yeah. No
but were the
connection
instruments
between
were the
them at all.
instruments okay? Was the instruments okay? Were the trucks okay, Clay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was more concerned about those things.
How's the van? Was the van okay?
Was the van okay? Man. Yes, Alex, and I'm fine too. God.
Thank you. Oh man.
But yeah, so obviously all of this is starting to escalate in the team. When it first happens, Lenny is on the scene and she takes her dad's side because her dad is convinced that he did it on purpose. And I literally just wrote Lenny with the face because she is giving Mr. Fernandez the side eye. She is rolling her eyes at everything that he's saying, but she's not being vocal. She is just standing by her dad. And as it escalates, it kind of spills out. Like I said, the groups start fighting. But here's the thing. Alex and Gabby played dirty because the one negative thing that Lenny ever says is about their store as a whole. But it only comes after, because there's a scene where Lenny is basically just walking by a stoop where Gabby, Alex, and Jamal are all sitting. And Gabby goes, "Ew, what's that smell?"
Yeah.
And then, Lenny confronts, and then she tries to go buy stuff in their bodega, and they kick her out, to which she says, "Well, I wouldn't want to buy things in a rotten store anyway." But
was it that everywhere everything is spoiled? Was that
something like that.
Yeah,
something like
but
that.
Yeah,
but it is
but
only in
right.
retaliation to them making it personal, and they do. They make
nagging on her the entire time.
Brutal. And it culminates, at least for me, it gets to its highest point in a scene which it really was not called for at all, because Jamal and Lenny are just talking in the hallway, and Alex, apparently for no other reason than to say this, because immediately after he says it, he walks out of the hallway. But walks up and says this.
Hey, Jamal, you got a leash for that dog? Arf, arf, arf!
The moment that happened, I was just like, Alex, you are an ass.
Yeah, yep.
Because it's like, okay, I understand that you're upset, that your parents are fighting, but there is no reason to get that personal. And both him and Gabby do. And it's just like, man, it's like, because usually Gabby is one of my favorite characters, but it's really kind of also personified in the difference between their fathers, which we see more later. Max seems much more willing to talk and discuss, whereas Eduardo, Mr. Fernandez, seems much more stubborn. Later on in the story when it looks like they might try to put things back together, Max encourages Lenny to see what they have to say. But Eduardo then tries to forbid his children from going to see Lenny. Yep. And it's just like...
And then doesn't Mr. Fernandez, the spouse comes in, comes in and says, no.
Yeah, Mrs. Fernandez, much more level-headed. Estella, I think.
And it's just not about the kids, it's about the fight that you have between, you and Max. And it's just, that the kids, do their thing. And it's just this, the tone when they're talking, they're kind of distancing each other is very much like, it reminds me of Saved by the Bell a little bit.
Sure.
That is actually a show I did watch in the 90s.
There you go.
So, and it's because my roommates would I would come back from school, and that is the show that they would have on. So so I watched a lot of Saved by the Bell. The original one, not the remakes, but the original one. But because they would do that a lot on that show, which was acceptable in high school, because that would be like normal high school behavior, unfortunately, to really make fun of people. And but in the context of this group, it is out of character. So so that's where I was trying to go.
Yeah,
with that.
and I mean, we've seen previously how Alex can be a hothead and really, kind of jump to conclusions and things like that. But, going that far...
That's not good enough, Alex.
No, really not.
It's not good. It's not good enough, Clay.
No, absolutely not. Actually, after that happens, we have a really odd scene where Lenny is sitting in the computer lab, and who comes to console her but Calvin Ferguson?
Yes.
And basically we get enough to see that Lenny is still angry at Alex, but then the scene cuts. And was it just me, or did it seem like that scene went much longer?
Yeah, I think it was. It wasn't a jump cut. It was just. Yeah, you're right. They just cut it and then went to something else.
Right, because we do actually get Lenny mentioning later that, like Rob, Calvin had spoken to her, and we get a scene, I think towards the end of the second episode, where Calvin talks to Rob and basically tells him that he had an imaginary friend growing up. And do you have an imaginary friend? Do you have someone you talk to that nobody else can see? Really kind of pumping for information. And I'm like, I bet you that is what was there. I feel like they actually filmed that conversation, but they decided that it wasn't necessary and they cut it.
Yeah, and I could tell you, like, Calvin, when he was pretend Ghostwriter,
right,
he was using, he was able to hook up all the things and do that, but couldn't figure out the font style.
No. Well, he didn't know it. That's the thing. He can't see Ghostwriter.
Guessing. Is that Helvetica? I don't know what it is. I'm just going to pick Times New Roman, I guess, and use that. So, but that's how long I'm on computers all day. I know the fonts. But it's but yeah. And then Rob, I got to give kudos to Rob's shirt. If you take a look at Rob's shirt, it is. His shirt says, and it took me a couple of takes here, everything reminds me of my dog.
Yes, so, I noticed that when I was watching that too. Was that like a popular shirt at the time?
A lot of dialogue on the front of the shirt. And then on the back, there was just like all these things that reminded him of his dog. That with the back of the shirt, we didn't get a lot of shots of, but the front definitely. But yeah, and like, so yeah, these, Rob appears, this is kind of the seeds a little bit of Calvin trying to peel Rob away from the group.
Right, yeah. Calvin has apparently decided that Rob is, if not the weak link, at least the one that he can work the best with.
Try to pick off a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Which I think is one of the reasons that they may have cut the rest of that scene with Lenny, because they really wanted to see, us to see him focusing on Rob. Mm-hmm. I will say though, it probably was a good idea for them to drop those scenes of him, kind of comforting Lenny for later on. But not for this story. That might be something we talk about at a later time. But like we said, while all of this is going on, Jamal has decided that probably the best way to heal this rift within the team is to find the person that ran in front of Mr. Fernandez's truck. Unfortunately, because he was driving and the guy just ran in front of him, he didn't get a great look at him, but he did know that he had red hair, and I think he said that he saw he was wearing a green shirt.
That sounds right.
Right, and either that or they got it from the video.
It was from the tape, I think.
Right. Yeah. So, Jamal, like you said, Tina gives Jamal the videotape because there is a point at which Tina does try to reconcile with Gabby, but the moment she gets there, Gabby, starts yelling at her and, everybody basically gives up. That actually is a scene where the entire team have a confrontation, and we actually see in the background Ghostwriter trying to communicate with them, and the more they fight, kind of the more faint the letters get. So we start realizing that this fight is affecting Ghostwriter.
Yes. The power of Ghostwriter is fading due to the disconnection of the friendships, the bonds of togetherness.
Right. He's strengthened by their connection. Yeah. He's strengthened by them. Mm-hmm. So Jamal wants to figure this out. The only person that will come over to his house, because everybody else is afraid they'll run into the wrong people and get yelled at again, is Gabby. So Gabby comes over and they watch the videotape. We have discovered that Ghostwriter is actually responsible for many things that we now appreciate in the modern world. Ghostwriter invented texting. Ghostwriter, unfortunately, this is one that we didn't pay attention to. Ghostwriter fixed Twitter because there was an episode where Jamal wrote an angry letter to someone, and then Ghostwriter erased it and said, "Doesn't that feel good? Now what do you really want to say?"
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I would say if you're on that track there, the animated for sale signs that we see today in storefronts.
Yeah.
Ghostwriter.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. That could be Ghostwriter. But we also learn in this episode that Ghostwriter is rudimentary editing software, because when they play the video, there were two men that very quickly ran past Tina's camera. So they pause it on those two men, and it is extremely blurry. And Ghostwriter clears up the image on both of them.
I don't know if you know this, Clay, but Ghostwriter was the beta version of Photoshop. I don't know if you know. It's really it's some great software there.
Yeah.
Here in 1993. That's great. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. He was the prototype.
Amazingly, it turned out like both shirts that Ghostwriter takes a look at. I mean, the clarity, they cleans it up so well you can actually read them, which is great. I mean, that's phenomenal. So there's some special skills there. So
yeah, absolutely. And speaking of glorious things, I'm hoping you can't hear it, but my dog was providing some wonderful sounds in the background. Earlier, he was chewing on a bottle, and now he was chewing on his favorite stuffed friend and has now fallen asleep. So he's snoring in the background.
It did sound like some sort of bell, but I just like, okay, it's just some artifacts from us recording. But that's all right. No, it was not. It was your dog.
Yeah, it's my dog sawing some logs.
All right.
But yeah. Yep. But yeah, so Ghostwriter clears up the image, and we see that one guy is carrying a sign that says "Mighty Bright, Mighty Clean," and he's being chased by a man wearing a shirt that says "Up Against the Wall Art Gallery." Yep. Well, we have an all too brief scene with Grandma Jenkins, who reveals that the Mighty Bright, Mighty Clean is actually an old ad for detergent. And she actually gives her own read of the ad copy.
Mighty bright, mighty clean, that's the might of mighty clean.
Which, I always love seeing Grandma Jenkins, so that was a bit of fun in there.
And that's the only time she's in the whole arc of these 4
episodes.
And that's
yeah.
It.
I mean, she's
but very memorable. Very memorable. And then it'd be like she did the whole jingle, and it's like dropping the mic and walking off the stage, and like that was it.
She's like,
that was my scene.
That's
done.
all we need.
Thank you.
We're good.
That's it. Yep.
It's like, you don't need to continue the story now, right?
Oh, you kids, you figure it out from here. I'm fine. Yeah.
But yeah, and so once they've figured that out, Jamal goes to the art gallery. I will say there was an exchange there that I thought was kind of funny, because Jamal's like, "Oh, that's right next to the bodega. You want to go?" And she's like, "Oh no, I got to get back to the bodega. My dad's expecting me." And I'm like, "They're right next door. You can ask your dad if you can go." It's like, because they're like, "Okay, bye." And I'm like, "You're going to be heading the same way for most of the trip. You don't have to say goodbye now."
Again, it's Jamal playing like this Encyclopedia Brown character, trying to figure just by himself.
Yeah. I will say he's doing a great job by himself. I mean, he does mention that it's not nearly as fun without the rest of the team, which I get.
Yep.
Totally get that. But he's doing a pretty decent job. I mean, in a previous story, Tina described Jamal as one of our best detectives, which I'm not sure what that meant about the rest of the team. But she wasn't wrong.
No, and from what we've seen so far, the only detective, right? Of what we have seen so far. And, he gets to go to an art gallery and learn all about Jarvis O'Connor.
Yeah.
And therefore take the audience, us with him, and we discover who this guy is and what he's responsible for, which helps advance the story.
Yes,
which is great.
Absolutely. And the security guard for the art gallery,
I love him, by the way. He's my favorite.
Bo Jackson. Which,
yes,
if you needed another reminder that this show is from the 90s, here's Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
Bo knows cameos.
Yep. And oh man, and then they provided Bo Jackson with his own like follow-up music. Like he would say some little dialogue, and then like dun 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 or the and it would be like a horn or something that would just chase after him. But it was only him.
Yeah,
like, he would say dialogue, and man.
I mean, they tried to make him seem menacing, and they don't give him many lines. They give him like a couple of words here and there.
He is known for his acting ability, Clay.
Right. Of course, they do let him get in his famous catchphrase just by, changing one word. Basically, we find out that Joe, Bo Jackson's character, they couldn't change. They couldn't change his name that much. Joe, actually, was chasing after a thief who stole the Mighty Bright, Mighty Clean. It was a painting of an advertisement, like you said, by Jarvis O'Connor, and Joe was chasing after him. Tripped and fell, so didn't actually see the guy run out in front of Mr. Fernandez's truck, but he did see the accident because Joe knows accidents. I was just like, wow. Yeah, if anybody who was born after, the 90s and has no clue who Bo Jackson was, he was basically a famous two-sport athlete. It was, football and baseball, right?
Football, yeah, that's correct.
Just like Deion Sanders, who actually is a much better speaker. I'm not sure why he wasn't given those types of... But anyway, Bo Jackson was in a whole bunch of commercials, and his catchphrase was, Bo knows, fill in the blank.
Yeah, Bo knows X or Y or Z. And he made a lot of those. A lot of those.
He was in a ton of commercials. So, to let him use his cat, I was like, this is definitely from a specific point in the 90s.
Yep.
Oh.
Now, so Joe knows accidents, including falling down and creating his own accidents for himself. Yes. I wanted to see that on camera, Clay. That's just me.
Right? Yeah. I will say, though, there's a moment towards the end of that scene that I was like, if you don't know this is Bo Jackson and that we're supposed to know him, that moment makes no sense as to, based on what you've set up the whole rest of the scene. Because the whole time, Jamal's been kind of intimidated by Joe. And he has a brief interaction where Joe admits that he saw him and that's it. But they haven't been friendly. But all of a sudden, Jamal starts walking out of the art gallery and for no reason turns around and gives Joe a high five. I'm like, when was that set up?
Isn't that something you do with every security guard you meet, Clay?
Yeah, that's the secret security handshake.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. That's it. Especially in art galleries, that is something I do. Yeah.
Oh, of course. It's like, way to guard this art, man. High five.
Why wouldn't you do that? Why? That's completely normal. Come on.
Yeah. Especially when the security guard is being played by Bo Jackson.
Correct.
Bo knows high fives.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as the second episode ends, Jamal reaches out to Lieutenant McQuaid, who is their police detective friend, who gives him way too much information to give a 13-year-old middle schooler that you are also telling not to investigate not to investigate by himself. And it's like, okay, but you gave him a whole lot of information. Okay. All right, whatever.
Absolutely don't do anything with this information I just gave you about this case.
But
don't
I want you to know, because you're my...
But I want to give you all the facts about it first. Yeah, but don't do anything, Clay. I want you just to sit on it.
Yeah.
And not do anything about it. That would be great.
But know all of it.
Yes. Here's everything we have on the case.
Yes.
And but again,
do nothing with it.
Do nothing.
Yes. I think what it really is Lieutenant McQuaid realizes that this group of kids is his version of Batman. It's like, have you ever watched the 1966 Batman? Like,
I have.
Every time a crime comes up, they're just like, do we think we can do anything about this? No. Let's call Batman. Like, I really think that Lieutenant McQuaid has realized that the Ghostwriter team is his Batman.
McQuaid, then, in your analogy, would be Lieutenant Gordon.
Yeah, Commissioner Gordon, yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
I'm sorry to say we don't have the resources to figure this out, but I'm sure a small group of children can.
Yes, that's correct. Let's put up the Ghostwriter signal. Go.
The secret phone for them is like one of those old like burger phones that kids would have in their room. But yeah, so at the end of that episode, Jamal tries to send basically a rally message to let the team know, because he thinks that the information that he's gotten, because he now knows that the guy they're looking for robbed an art gallery, so they've got something to go on. He thinks that this information is going to bring the team together, but the team either ignore it, or Ghostwriter realizes that the mood that they're in, that they're not going to receive it. So Ghostwriter doesn't even give them the message. And Ghostwriter basically comes back and says he couldn't deliver the message and starts to slowly fade out, which starts to freak Jamal out, of course. Yeah, so at the top of the next episode, we find out that apparently the court date for the lawsuit has already been set. It's in 3 weeks, and I wrote down, that's kind of fast, isn't it? For all of this to go through and for them already to set a court date for 3 weeks?
I mean, maybe there's just not a lot going on in the town, Clay.
In New York City? In Brooklyn? I'm just saying. They're fast-tracking this thing, man.
I mean, I guess
the destruction of instruments is taken very seriously.
Thank you.
In Brooklyn,
not just instruments that we know of. It could be just instrument cases.
Yes.
Which jumps, like, if it was instruments, that would be fine. But instrument cases, all the way up there. That is number one.
You know what? Right, I think the judge watches this show and just wants to know for sure that there were instruments in those cases.
Yes. Let me get my best person on it.
Yes.
So that's right.
But we also find out that Calvin is kind of upping his mind games, but because he has a lack of information, is very transparent. Because Rob goes to his locker, finds a note from Ghostwriter, and at first he's relieved, and then he realizes, wait a second, Ghostwriter doesn't leave notes.
Yep.
If he wanted to tell me something, he'd rearrange the bulletin board.
Yep, and it was Rob's reaction, like he like it's that actor reaction when you read halfway down and like it's right here.
Yeah,
you need to change and react. Dude.
Wait
it's
a
not
second.
wait a minute, that's not right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was Rob right there. Yep.
Oh
yep.
yeah. So Jamal and Rob, because Rob is starting to realize that him pulling away is not helping things. There was actually a really good scene between Rob and Ghostwriter, where Rob is like, I feel like everyone's leaving me, and Ghostwriter's like, well, have you talked to them? And he's like, no. And he's like, well, then who's really doing the leaving, Rob? He's like,
yeah, that was actually really insightful.
Yeah.
That was a very insightful moment.
Yeah, I was like, you go, Ghostwriter.
That's like the theme. That's like the arc of the show of this. And like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's great, man. That's the show. But that's really it. And Rob, but it helps to wake up Rob, right?
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not them that are the problem. I'm the problem, and I need to do something about it. So that's where they're coming from.
So him and Jamal basically get together to, try to figure out how to get the team back together, because, they've both realized that Ghostwriter is disappearing because they're losing connection. And so they write the team a letter.
Yep.
For some reason, they only print out one copy. Not really sure why. It comes in handy later, but for some reason in the scene, they only print one copy. But we also, during this, start to see a whole bunch of flashbacks. I wrote down, like, they're showing so many flashbacks, it's almost like a clip show, but it's not as so lazy. Most of the time, shows would do clip shows usually towards the end of a season when they're trying to save money, and they write basically a 10-minute episode that they can then weave throughout all of these clips that they're going to play. Whereas this one, number one, the clips aren't very long, they're pretty short, but also this story is so interconnected to previous stories that they have to give some sort of background for anybody that hasn't seen those previous stories, because this was in a time when things weren't serialized, things weren't interconnected, and they're trying to tell this story in kind of while referring to other episodes that they then realize, hey, these people may not have seen these. Let's play some clips to let them know what the hell we're talking about. Okay. For context. Yes.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, at the top of every single one of these episodes, not to go back too much, but the clip, the package that they put together, whether it's the editors or what they wrote as the write-up, you could jump right into the top of episode 3 here and just watch the 2-minute summary package of what's going on, and you would be caught up.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's good.
These were, like I said, this was a very serialized show in a time when that wasn't the norm. So those things were very comprehensive because they had to be.
Yeah, the recaps were very good. Yeah.
Cool. But so in this episode, like I said, Calvin is stirring up shit, and he decides that the best way to kind of cement this split is by sending the whole team letters saying that they want to talk, to make up, to apologize, whatever, sending them all to different places. And when they get to that place, there's another letter there that just says, ha, ha, ha.
Yes. And I love how each character reads the ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
Just a shade differently. Ha, ha, ha. Or
ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, I'm like, you could read that a half a dozen different ways. Yeah. I'm like, it's a joke. But they didn't realize it was a joke until they read the ha, ha, ha. So I've
got to say, I much prefer Calvin's version.
Yes.
His evil villain laugh. because Calvin is a cartoon.
Yes. So here's my note here as well. Calvin is Biff Tannen Light, or the Diet Coke Biff Tannen.
Yeah,
So
I can definitely see that. But I will say the error in his master plan is that he sends them all to the same park, at the same time.
Right, which is, if you're trying to separate them, is the opposite.
Yes, the opposite of what you want to do. And apparently, he sticks around long enough to see them all come and confront each other, but then must immediately leave because later on, he doesn't realize that they're reconciled.
But he helped cause the reconciliation.
Yes.
So
really, they have Calvin to thank. For getting all together.
Calvin actually shot himself in the foot in this case, and caused them to be together. So good job, Calvin. Let's give a round of applause for Calvin for that one. I'm sure it's exactly what he intended. Yes, good job.
Yeah. But so Calvin, like I said, sets up the opportunity for them to get together, and once they all confront each other about the letters, they suddenly realize, hey, this was a setup. And then Jamal and Rob read them the letter that they wrote and only printed one copy because apparently they knew this was going to happen. Even though they said the whole reason they were reading the letter was so they wouldn't have to listen and could just read. Kind of defeats the point. But anyway, they listen to the letter and they are, they all realize that they've been being silly. I will say, though, there is a moment when they're, reconciling. And one of the moments in the letter is about a previous story where Gabby got sick. And Alex just looks at Gabby and goes, when you were sick, I was really worried about you. And I was like, wait a second. This looks like a reconciliation moment between the two of them. They don't need to reconcile. They've been fine the whole time. Why did we need that scene?
It's to continue the theme of the reconciliation.
Yeah. But I will say
everybody is reconciling.
I will say, though, the two people that didn't speak, that didn't reconcile, that made no sort of connection whatsoever, Alex and Tina. Although I will say, the look between Gabby and Tina when they reconciled, like, if somebody wanted to, they could make a shipping video between the two of them from that reaction, because there seemed like there was more of a connection between them. I'm just saying. But yeah, so closing out this episode, basically, Rob gets another letter from Ghostwriter in his locker. And, Rob knows right away who it is. So he, Alex, and Lenny, they're going to show Calvin. So Calvin comes to confront who he thinks is Rob alone in the computer room. And is basically like, I know who Ghostwriter is. Dun, dun, dun. Cliffhanger for the episode. But when they come back up, he basically is like, I know who Ghostwriter is. Don't pretend otherwise. And he's like, I want to start a new Ghostwriter team, and you're going to be on it. And we're going to get Ghostwriter to give us all the answers for the test and blah, 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 blah. All the things that they once asked Ghostwriter if he would do, and he said no. The things that he could never actually get to happen. Of course, Calvin doesn't know that because he's not a person Ghostwriter would talk to.
No. At least not on purpose. Yeah.
No.
I was talking to you. I'm sorry, that was the wrong computer. My bad. Let me move on. Yeah.
So basically, the other two, Alex and Lenny, jump out and they're like, he's already part of a team. And Calvin's like, well, I know who Ghostwriter is. And they're just like, yeah, so that's all you know. It's like, the truth is that the only reason that they can't tell anybody about Ghostwriter is because they would look like lunatics.
Yes.
Like, because otherwise it really doesn't matter because they're the only ones that can see him. So Calvin could literally know everything that they know about Ghostwriter, which isn't a whole lot, and it still wouldn't matter because he can't see him. So, you know,
and not only can he can't see the writing, he doesn't see the context. He just knows that there's something going on and something.
Yeah, he just knows that the team has information from some source. I mean, that's what started him down this alley in the first place, because he wanted to know how they got their information. But it doesn't matter because he can't see, and based on the type of person he is, never will. But once the team is now back together, honestly, the case after that is really quickly solved. I'm like...
It is.
Yeah.
It's like the first 5 minutes of episode 4, and like, wow, you guys really wrapped that up pretty quick.
Yeah, it's like, man, if you guys hadn't been fighting, this would have been a short episode. Good thing you guys had that fight, right? But yeah, we find out, this is another one of those mysteries that, like I said, it's not set up for us to solve because the person who it is, we're not introduced to until the last episode. But we find out that Jarvis O'Connor was this famous advertising man, and he basically did the artwork for these ads, and they were worth quite a bit of money. I think they said over $1 million or something like that.
Yeah,
but,
that's right.
Right before he died, in his will, he sold all of them to charity, which left his wife and his son penniless. So I'm like, okay.
Penniless. Nothing.
Yeah, I'm like, either he realized that his wife and his son were assholes, or he was a dick.
Yeah.
Because one of those things has to be true. Because, like, why else would he just all of a sudden in his will leave his wife and his son nothing and sell all of the rest of his assets to charity?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and not surprisingly, the show does not go into that too much.
No. It really. I mean, I will say, Daniel O'Connor, his son, does not make a good case for himself not being the jerk.
He actually plays the jerk card pretty well.
Yeah.
For villains or for people who don't want to seem guilty, he seemed pretty guilty.
Yeah.
That's just
he's like, those should have been my paintings anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So was it you that jumped in front of the truck? Yeah, but like
yes,
it's just
so
like, so
yeah.
Like we've been for 3 episodes for an hour. We've been trying to figure this out, man.
You almost caused the death of Ghostwriter. What do you have to say for yourself?
You destroyed $10,000 worth of instruments. Come on, please.
Oh, yeah, he does not give a shit at all. No. Speaking of somebody who doesn't give a shit, so Jamal convinces Lieutenant McQuaid to let the team bring
That's right.
Max and Eduardo to the bust, basically so that they can see Daniel get captured, and so that Eduardo can ID him and, basically resolve this whole situation. And I will say Eduardo does not seem to give a fuck at all in this situation, because they get there, and of course both of them are like, you didn't tell me he was going to be here.
Yep.
And then, they bring the guy out, and they're like, Mr. Fernandez, does he look familiar? And he's like, yeah, I guess he kind of does. And then, Max is like, so this is the guy. Oh, I'm so sorry. And he's like, maybe we can figure this out. And I love there's a scene. So Max is like, maybe we can compromise. And apparently compromise means Matt comes up with the whole plan while Eduardo looks annoyed.
Yep.
Because literally Max is like, I realize, that you didn't do this on purpose. Let's compromise. And he looks at him for a second, and Eduardo just stares at him. He's like, oh, how about we both pay some? He's like, yeah,
how about you pay half?
Yeah.
You pay half.
Yeah.
That's the compromise. And,
yeah.
All right.
And
sure.
And he's like, yeah, that sounds fair. Obviously that scene makes Mr. Fernandez look like a big jerk. I will say, though, that in the very next scene, he apparently realized that he was being a big jerk, because in the next scene, he is writing Max a letter and basically, apologizing for the way he acted, especially, he said, I'm sorry, I was so rude to you.
Yeah.
In that scene specifically, I'm like, well, at least you realized it, dude.
And here's the thing. What I love about that is that he's trying to write it in his native Spanish.
Yes.
Because but he can't find the English words, and the kids help him find those words.
Yeah. I have to say, I loved that scene.
Yeah. It was a very endearing scene.
Yeah.
Where the kids help them find the right words to convey the right emotions, the right message. And it worked. Like, it was just like any explanation scene. It was a long scene, but it did give the message. It did relay, and like, oh, I acted like a jerk to this guy, and maybe I write him the letter, and it worked.
I mean, I've said it before and I've said it again. Some of the best parts of this show are the Fernandez family being a family. Like, they're just so good together. They really are. I will say, though, my one thing of being like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, this was the 90s, was at the end, Mr. Fernandez, they've all helped figure out how to write this letter. So, they've written the letter, and then Mr. Fernandez hugs Estella, hugs his wife, hugs Gabby, and then he looks at Alex, and then Alex extends his hand, and they're both like, men don't hug. No. Give me a handshake. It's like, oh, dude, guys, you're family. Hug. It's okay. But, like I said, it's the one thing that makes me go, oh, yeah, 90s. Men aren't allowed to show affection. How stupid we are.
But yeah, and then doesn't Miss Fernandez go over to the apartment next?
Yes. Right after that, he goes back over to the apartment. Yeah. And I will say, the thing in that scene that I thought was funny is that Max is super sensitive now. Like, Max is literally just tinkling on a keyboard, and the moment Mr. Fernandez comes to the door, because Lenny answers it, the minute that he sees Mr. Fernandez, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Was I being too loud? I thought it was quiet, and he's just like falling all over himself.
No,
and I'm like,
no.
I'm like, it's like, okay, you guys are both trying. It's all right. Just Just take some time to settle. You're okay.
Yeah, I think you overcorrected just a shade, but yes,
But yeah, so they're good and they're all friends again and everything. And we celebrate by the team having a party, and for some reason they're dancing to Hang On Sloopy, which I was
as
like,
you would.
Yeah. A group of kids in the 90s. Yeah, that's the music they're listening to.
And I believe, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I think that's late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm like, okay, obviously they couldn't, they didn't have the budget to get like a song from the 90s. They couldn't afford Green Day or
Bye 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 or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would have been later 90s, but yeah.
But yes,
they couldn't
Green
afford
Day,
Nirvana. Not that I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, maybe Rob would have listened to Nirvana.
Metallica, Mellencamp would be 90s as well. There maybe some Bon Jovi, perhaps.
But I mean, I'm like, at the very least, I'm like, we wouldn't be surprised if they were all just listening to Lenny's songs. I mean, we know she's a musician, and they did actually in this episode, while they're fighting, she is writing like one of the like she goes into her angst phase, and she starts writing a real like sad, somber song about them not being friends anymore and all that kind of good stuff. She goes emo for a second, but
I looked it up real quick, and Hang On Sloopy is 1964, by the way.
Okay, yeah. So why is a group of kittens in the 90s dancing to Hang On Sloopy? It's like, okay, I guess maybe that was just the album that her dad. But does that look like the song that her dad's gonna be listening to either?
I don't think so.
No. He's a musician. He obviously is very serious about his music. I don't think that's the party music he's listening to. I'm like, at the very least, you could have gotten like, any of the weird like beeps and boops, electronica that you play for all of the rest of your stuff. I don't know why you had to play Hang On Sloopy, but they do. But we get a very important scene that is actually setting up the next story, where Ghostwriter comes in and basically tells them that he, says, "Do not worry, my children." Like, he's done this like once before, but anytime he gets super serious with them, he calls them my children, and I'm just like, that's real weird.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
Yeah. It's a little strange. But he's like, I have to help someone, and I don't know when I will return. I'm leaving. And of course, they're just trying to figure out what's going on, and they start, just kind of coming up with, explanations for what might be happening. Mm-hmm. But I will say, Jamal might be reaching with this explanation.
He's probably going out to have some fun, and maybe he'll sneak into a movie and read the subtitles.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that makes sense, Jamal. That's why he's telling you he's leaving and has to help someone.
Yes, to go watch a movie, to watch the subtitles.
To read subtitles.
Because, again, that's what you do when you're Ghostwriter.
Yeah.
I gotta go for just a couple hours. I'll be back.
Yeah.
But just 2 hours. I gotta go do a thing, and I'll be right back.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we have established that there is times when he's not constantly writing to them. I don't think he would make such a big deal about it if he was going to read a foreign film. It's
right on brand with Ghostwriter.
Yeah. That sounds like something he would do to me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it does.
I don't think that he would. But of course, the team gets very desperate. Rob actually gets angry. He feels like he's being abandoned, but they were basically left on this cliffhanger of Ghostwriter is leaving. He doesn't know if he will be able to come back, but he's going to try, and he has to help someone. That's all we got.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think was this the only cliffhanger of the whole show?
This was the only one that they ever did from one story to another.
That's what I meant, from one story arc to another, right?
Yeah.
So
wow. So like I said, this is kind of a bit of a trilogy. As much as the last story didn't really have, like, the main story didn't have much to do with this one, it did drop a lot of clues, and it was referred to a lot in this one. And then obviously the next one, it goes right into it. So this was kind of a rare, making it even more serialized than it already was.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I thought that was a very dramatic point in the show to end on. Like, this cliffhanger, like what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like it. And that was very cool, because you're right, you don't see that often. You're right, because there wasn't a lot of the serialization at that time.
Yeah, not at that time.
Exactly,
it was
right.
really different. So
last time on Ghostwriter. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
There is a segment that we like to do here, which we call Ghostwriter Fashion. This is, like I said, this show was from the 90s, and it is very evident in many times in many different ways. Definitely when you look at the fashion. And as always, because I started this segment because of Lenny's hats, I always like to highlight those first.
Sure. Yeah.
If you want to, as always, if you want to follow along with this segment, you can go to our Instagram, which is just the Flying Cow Pod on Instagram, and you can check out all of these photos there. So in this first picture, I'm calling this Dueling Koofies because Lenny has basically made the Koofy her signature hat. But as Jamal could just be pointing out in this scene, it is traditionally a hat worn by black men. So he's just kind of showing out. Yeah, he's showing off his Koofy while Lenny is wearing hers. Not to shame her at all. But yeah, and then Rob is just standing in the middle, judging the contest.
Yeah, and who do you think won in this case, Clay?
It's hard to say because honestly, and I've said it before, as dorky as Jamal is, he looks good in just about anything that they put him in. But I will say that, Lenny is rocking this yellow kufi, and she's got kind of a bohemian-looking floral print dress with her, chains and her bag and whatever else she's got going on. I think she's got on leggings. She looks good. She doesn't look bad in it. So I think they look equally good in their own ways, although, Jamal has heritage on his side.
Yes. Yeah. And I will give Jamal for the win here, I think, on this one.
All right.
Just me though.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. His at least matches his pants. He's wearing brown kufi with brown pants, looking pretty good. Mm-hmm. And Rob is just sporting his grunge look in his flannel and t-shirt
and pants that I think are way too low.
Oh my goodness! I didn't even notice where the seam was. Yeah, those are way too.
Yeah, I mean,
especially
that
for his
seems a little
height.
low to me.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Oh geez. All right. Well, let's take a look at this next one. All right. So this one I just called the Hat Trio because all three. I mean, sure, Rob's isn't technically a hat. But Rob is intent on wearing these do-rags. I don't know why. They don't look great on him. But he is wearing one, and so is Alex. And Lenny is sporting her black and white kufi, which I actually think we saw in the last story, which is odd. I don't think we've had a repeat of a kufi until now. But she's also wearing, I think, like a painting she's turned into a vest, and a just a long sleeve tan shirt. Her fashion is nothing if not interesting.
Yeah, and I would definitely give you that. And it looks briefly like she just took something. She took some curtains and put it together, and that's what I'm going to wear that today.
I honestly I was like, okay, is that a painting or an apron or a shirt? Not sure.
Yes.
Apparently neither could Lenny.
All three?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, yep.
All right. Let's move forward. All right, and this is the scene in which I just said Lenny with the face.
Yeah, She's good with the faces,
Yes,
for sure. With the reactions. Yeah.
She was this is in the action of her rolling her eyes. And not sporting a hat, but sporting a very fashionable headband. So not a whole lot else going on.
And giving the side eye there, and about the rolled eyes.
Yep.
And
yeah. She's like, Mr. Fernandez.
You.
All right. Okay, and this one is also to highlight Lenny's look here, because she's not wearing a hat. She is actually wearing, like, it looks very old fashioned. Is that just me, or what do you think about that?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like that, but it just at least she's not. It doesn't look like she's wearing a bag print this time. It's actually she's wearing a dress, which is better.
It looks like it looks like the dress itself that she's wearing looks like, I would say, and I'm not a fashion expert, so you anyone out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but you
are not a fashion. I'm not going to correct you. No. You're not a fashion expert, right?
But it looks like an outfit from, I would say, the 40s or 50s. I mean,
I can see that for sure.
I would never be shocked to find out that Lenny shopped at a thrift store and found a deal on something from that period. But she is also wearing her hair in a very old-fashioned style. You can't really see it from here, but she's got kind of an interesting knot of her hair on the top of this hairdo.
I can see that now.
And it kind of like pillows the top of her head. The rest of it is down, but it's a very old-fashioned look, which I'll just say might be foreshadowing for the next story.
Ooh. All right.
Never know.
Play teasing the next episode.
Okay, so this next one, not a whole lot to discuss. Just wanted to let everybody see the print that apparently caused all of this trouble. A Jarvis O'Connor original.
Yep.
I will say I think that this was all invented for the show, and if it is, I will say pretty decent for them. In previous stories, we've seen that their names often weren't the best. So I actually think this was a decent ad campaign that they just came up with for this, fictional product.
Yeah, and it has that callback to earlier ads, right? Yeah. Where that was, or like this really calls out like the 50s type of ads.
Yeah.
But and
that Art Deco look, yeah.
But you're right. I'm going to give them kudos there, like you did. They definitely pulled off that classic advertising look.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the corny, if not effective, slogans as well.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah. I mean, all of those things were pretty basic and straightforward. So I would say if they couldn't come up with a decent one to echo that style, they might want to quit writing.
Maybe writing's not your thing then. Maybe you need to move on.
Yeah. All right.
All you got to do is come up with a slogan. Go.
Yeah.
Anyway, yep.
Okay, so I threw this in just to remind us once again, that this show was made in the 90s, because this shirt that Gabby is wearing could only have come from the 90s. It's literally a big... It exemplifies 90s fashion. She is wearing her hair down very, very puffy, and she's wearing a very oversized t-shirt, or actually, I guess it's a long sleeve, very oversized shirt, pink, with red letters, just says, "Chill, homeboy." It's very 90s.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could totally see, us wearing that sweatshirt today, don't you?
Yeah, in a very ironic way, sure.
Yeah, yeah. For a 90s party, yeah, that would be fine. It'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I included this because, as we've mentioned, often Gabby's hair can be just as interesting as Lenny's fashion choices. Now, granted, I am a guy with not much hair, so when it comes to different styles and stuff like that, I'm very out of the loop. But this right here is such an interesting thing that she's got going on with her hair. It's basically looks like it's been turned into a braid into like a scorpion's tail that has decided to continually sting her head. Because it's
you're right.
Because it's basically it's a vertical bun.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a vertical bun. I've seen them flat laying on the head, but this is not. It is standing. It's basically the mohawk version of a bun.
Which, yeah, and you know what it is? It does kind of look like your scorpion analogy here because of the hairband itself at the very top.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's what she was going for, the scorpion bites your head look, I think she nailed it. Yeah. I think she's on it. And there's no one else on the show that could have done that.
No.
But yeah.
No.
Man, yeah, I missed that. You're right. Jeez.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look. Okay, so of course, Bono's cameos. So, I just had to give us a shot of Bo Jackson doing pretty much the only thing he does in this story. Just standing there looking tough. It's
which he does very, very well.
Yeah, yep. I mean, at that time you didn't need much more from Bo Jackson. He couldn't give you much more either, but this is what
if you
got.
Here's your direction here. I want you to stand there, look intimidating, and just say the 3 words we give you.
Yes.
That is it.
And say your name a whole lot.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Bo, no. Your name's Joe this time.
Joe.
Joe. Joe.
Is that Joe with a J or a Q? I'm not. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. All right.
He's like, but it's usually Bo. Joe's not really my name. No, we know that. We know that, Bo. We know your name.
We got you.
But right now, you're going to pretend that it's Joe.
And that you work against.
Bo knows acting. No, I don't think you do. but sure.
Yep.
All right.
It was a good cameo. I enjoyed it.
Okay, so I had to throw this one in at the end because so there is a scene right after the accident where Max and Mr. Fernandez are in the bodega and they're both talking to someone about the accident. Later on, we see the person that Mr. Fernandez is talking to is basically the costume department's really cheap attempt at a cop. He's
you're right.
Wearing a badge that looked like they probably got it out of a kid's dress up kit and like a white short sleeve shirt. Like, isn't all that convincing. But this dude that's talking to Max, just by looking at him, why would you think Max is talking to this person?
Just by looking at it?
Yeah, like what connection does this guy look like he has to this accident? Any?
I mean, no. That's what I'm like. It doesn't look like any. Like you're absolutely right. He doesn't look like he's an authority person.
No.
First of all, there aren't many cops that wear orange hats.
No. Well, here's the thing. I don't think he's supposed to be a cop. I think he's supposed to be a reporter.
Detective?
I think he's supposed to be a reporter. But once again, why is he wearing a baseball hat?
Exactly. So, I mean,
totally throws everything off.
Yeah. And then if you're a reporter and it's casual day for you, maybe you wear the name of your paper or something on your hat.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kept trying to see if
know.
maybe that's what the hat
like
said, but he stayed profile the whole time. So you can't even
like
read the hat.
Like a media badge or something. Something to identify you. Yeah.
But there's nothing that he says that really identifies who or what he's like. I'm like, who is this guy? What does he have to do with anything? Like, I mean, I assumed he was a reporter, but he could have just been a plainclothes detective. Of course, then I'm not sure why they didn't call in Lieutenant McQuaid, because as we know, Lieutenant McQuaid is the Ghostwriter team's official detective.
Yes.
Apparently, they weren't told that the kids were involved, otherwise he would have been on the scene.
I mean, doesn't McQuaid work for the kids? Isn't that right,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, he's got to work for somebody. I mean, I'm sure Lenny's paying his salary. You know.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, because I think her music career is more successful than her father's.
Ooh, ouch.
All right. Well, that is about it for that. But we do have a couple of segments real quick. First of all, Kevin, I want to know, who is your top suspect for this story? It can be anybody. Basically, the person that you enjoyed the most, that you thought was the most important or gave the best performance, or whatever criteria you want to choose. And it can be anybody on the team, anybody. It could be a background extra if you want. But who was your top suspect?
My best character, actually, believe it or not, I like Tina.
Tina, okay.
Tina, because she appeared to be a techie, like very much I am.
Yeah.
And I related immediately with her again because I have that camera. It's definitely old now. But yeah, and it is because of what she did with and recorded it, and that provided the basis for Jamal later on.
Case. Yep.
Yeah, for the whole
Without
case.
Tina, we would have been lost. It's true.
Right, trying to make Max the star at the top of episode 1. So that's my favorite character.
Okay.
About there. Yeah.
All right. So for me, people are going to get tired of me saying this, but honestly, for me in this story, my top suspect was the whole Fernandez family. I love them. I think that they're so great as a group together, and I mean, I honestly wish that there had been a Ghostwriter spinoff that was just the Fernandez family being a family. Because
about the bodega,
they're just they're the best. And I mean, I obviously I love Gabby. I pick on Alex a little bit, kind of because he deserves it. I just love it, especially anytime that all four of them are there, because they're just such a great unit. They're a great combination, and they're so believable as a family. And you know, especially with the Spanish English combination, you know, I mean, I've said all of this before, but you know, they're great. They were my top suspect for this story.
But yeah, and they came off like they actually interact and have chemistry as an on-screen family.
Yeah, they really
very well.
do.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, Kevin. So with that. What was your rewind moment?
So, I honestly, because I'm kind of corny,
sure.
I like the scene, and I think it's in episode 3 or 4, where they just make up a bunch of fake slogans, trying to come up with the fake slogan to nab.
Oh yeah. Okay, so the scene once the team gets back together and they realize that Daniel is the one that is stealing the art, they try to set a trap for him, and you know, tell basically make posters saying that they have a piece of art that he hasn't stolen yet. And they try to come up with different ad slogans for this fake ad. And it's a lot of fun.
Some of them are very, very punny.
Yeah.
For some of our immediate friends who don't like puns, I enjoy them. I enjoy them quite a bit. So they were talking about, because the ad, they picked one that had not been stolen yet. And so they picked this one. It's about peanut butter.
Yeah.
And so I think, I think it's Rob who says, "You butter, come look at this painting."
Yeah.
Which is pretty good there. And you'd be, I think the other one they ended up on was you'd be nuts to not buy this painting.
Yeah.
Not to buy it. Yeah. So I could, because I enjoy punny jokes, I could rewatch that scene.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that one was fun.
Yep. How about yours? Yep.
So mine, I kind of already gave it away, but it was the scene where with the Fernandez family writing the letter. I just loved that scene.
Yeah.
It was just so well done. How they all contributed. Because Mr. Fernandez is struggling with the fact that he doesn't know English as well, and his kids who speak it much more fluently help him out, and Gabby helps with spelling, and Estella is there because she is the most level-headed of all of them, and is the one to tell them when they're being stupid. But it's a great scene between all of them, and it's honestly the big reason that they were my top suspect was because of that scene. It was good, and this is going back to top suspect, but I will give a shout out to Richard Cox, who played Max Fraser. He's not in the show very often, but when he is, I always enjoy his scenes with Lenny. I think that they have a decent chemistry, not as strong, I think, as the Fernandez family. Probably mostly because they don't have nearly as much screen time as the Fernandez family does. But he's the first one to reach out and try to resolve this. I think I like him as Max.
And I think he has a very unique delivery.
Yeah.
Of his dialogue, and my initial note was Christopher Walken
Sure.
So, because he has kind of that broken up dialogue a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had to reverse look him up because I had seen him before and I couldn't place him. He actually had a 1-episode arc on Star Trek: The Next Generation. So, so there we go.
Yeah.
Yes. So there you go.
There you go.
Anyone that watched TNG when that aired, very good. Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to figure out which episode that is because I'm racking my brain to try to figure out which episode.
Yeah.
But
it's an alien. It's an Alien of the Week episode. I looked it up.
Sure.
I'll find it. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, a couple more questions for you there, Kevin. First of all,
sure.
If Ghostwriter were real and he wrote to you, would you write back? And if so, what would you say?
I would say, first of all, why can't I see you? Because we have the technology today, right? This is 25 years later from the show. And why are you still writing? Why aren't you on TikTok? Or what's going on there?
I don't know. Ghostwriter might have a Twitter. He might be the one voice Twitter, of reason out there trying to fix everything, and nobody's listening to him.
So you're familiar with Twitter, then? Very good. But one voice of many.
Yes.
But I would ask, because in theory, this entity would have aspects to read anything, right? And to find anything. It's kind of like if Siri actually worked, but but you could ask it anything and it would go get it for you. So it's kind of like a live Google that talks back to you. I don't know, because if we follow the rules of the show, you can't ask it to help write your term paper for you, or you can't ask it to go, take this certification test for you, or whatever it is. Or
he has a conscience. So
amazingly, it's pretty good for a non-defined entity that can read and write text. It's pretty good, all things considered. But honestly, that I hadn't thought of it. I think I would ask, what do you find the most interesting? What is the most interesting thing that you have read, which is very applicable to where we are today? Because a lot of us are, yes, we're on screens all the time, but we are, we always ask, like, what are you reading? And what's interesting to you? And so I would take that approach, and like, what's the most interesting thing you have read recently? And where did you read that? So I would be interested.
You're trying to get a good Goodreads review from Ghostwriter?
Yeah, well, that and because I'm assuming that Ghostwriter is not just hanging around here in our local city here, but also has the ability to be anywhere, like the Santa of reading things. So but yeah, it can be everywhere and anywhere, and so it could read anything, and it could translate any language, I would assume too, because that's not really explored so much. But but I think it would be, I would be interested to see what's the most interesting thing you read, the most interesting, like, not to pull from the ad, but what's the most, the most interesting thing you've read. I don't always read everything, but when I do, here's what I read. So, yes.
All right. Well, your line of thinking fits pretty well into the next question, which is based on what you do know of what you've seen, who or what would you guess Ghostwriter is?
That's a tough one. So initially, for a brief second, I thought that Lenny's music might have had something to do with it, but it did not.
No.
So obviously, and also her choice of music, not that great. But I don't know, because I know who it's not. It's not Calvin, because he's not.
No, it is not Calvin.
Definitely not that. It's not Calvin's bird. But I don't know. It would have to be. And that, I'm just spitballing here, because I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how the show ends. I don't know any of that. All I have is the context of these 4 episodes. So I think that it would have to be something related in some fashion to these kids, to make it stick around.
Sure.
Right? To kind of like a ghost, sure. But in some way that it would it has, not to pull from the ghost tropes, but it needs to do something. It needs to fulfill its purpose of why it's helping these kids.
Right.
If we go with this paranormal, or this extra, this special skill of why this thing floats around all the time. And honestly, when it's on the screens, it reminds me of you remember Clippy, by the way?
Yeah.
The old Microsoft Clippy.
Yeah.
When it's on the screens, it looks like a little, like a kind of a disconnected pineapple when it's on the screens. But but like, that's what it reminds me of. I'm like, oh, it's trying to assist the kids. My little icon here on the left. But
do you need help? Yeah.
Do you need help? Yes, I do. Well, thank you for asking. Yes. Here's how to do this thing.
Yeah.
But actually, I don't have a clue. My best guess it's in some way related to the kids or the families that they're around, and that's why it sticks around.
Okay.
I really don't know. I wish I did. And
that's fine.
Yeah, it's a good concept. So yeah.
All right. I will say that the identity of Ghostwriter was, at least initially, a very important mystery to the show. Now they didn't do the best job with dropping clues, but it was something that was intended to be solved. Unfortunately, because the show was eventually canceled, they never actually resolved that mystery. But there was eventually an interview given. So I have that information. Would you like to hear it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the ultimate cliffhanger, Clay.
Okay.
Come on, for this show. Do it.
All right. So, in 2010, Ghostwriter writer and producer Kermit Frazier revealed in the interview that Ghostwriter was...
What? Wow. That is, from my perspective, out in left field.
Sure.
Interesting.
Right.
Wow. That is new information, Clay. I wouldn't have thought of that in a million years that was Ghostwriter.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Well, now is the time. I want to give everyone the opportunity to get into contact with us. If you want to contact us at all, we are the Flying Cow Pod on just about everything. That's the Twitter handle. That is Instagram, the Flying Cow Pod at gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook. We have a group if you want to do that. But Kevin, I want to give you the opportunity if there is anything that you would like to plug, anything that you're enjoying in media, and a bonus if it uplifts the voices of women or people of color.
Okay. First of all, is the Flying Cow also on the Ghostwriter? Is Ghostwriter helping you promote there, Clay?
I wish he would, because I'm horrible at social media. I really am.
I hear he's a good writer, so
yeah, right.
Better get on that. So I don't have a movie to plug or a TV show to plug at the time. But as you know, my wife Amy, she's an actress, and I'm often right now, because of the pandemic times that we are in, one of my long-term and gestating projects was to build a studio that I started in August of 2019 is when I started building it out. It's done. It's
nice.
It's yeah. And so you've kind of seen pieces here and there that I move around for the backdrops, but actually, or if you go on the Facebooks, but it's on there too. Today, I had a shot of one of the cats in the studio, and so we've actually used that for auditions, and so I've helped Amy. I've been director and cameraman, and helped out with that, and set up the studio, and spike marked everything as well that the cats pull up all the time. But no, that's still what I'm doing. I'm not into there's not a lot of theater going on right now, obviously.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But I'm trying to help where I can, and one of that was to build a recording studio at home, because as actors, when you're trying to get film and TV work or commercial work, you need to put your audition on tape, and you usually go to an offsite taping studio to go do that, and you pay $20-$25 for 15 minutes to help out. Where it's been a year and we built it ourselves. I split out the basement and I built it and sound padded it enough to where we can use it, which is pretty cool. That was my big project. So I don't have anything I'm directly doing right now. But if you're ever in need of an announcer, I know a guy. That guy's me. I can definitely help you out there, Clay. It's not a problem. But things I'm watching, things I pay attention to. We're currently in season 4 of The Crown, which I would recommend on the Netflix.
Yeah, I'm getting closer and closer to watching that.
Yeah.
I like every season I see the previews and I'm like, oh, that looks really good, and then I get wrapped up in something else.
It is Netflix's most expensive show, and you will see why.
Yeah.
Because every episode looks like it's a movie. It's amazing. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
I'm also very much a sci-fi nerd, as you may be aware. Going to Dragon Con like everybody else back when we can go.
Right.
And so I I am very much in Nirvana, where both new Star Trek and new Star Wars stuff is on right now. So I've been watching season 3 of Star Trek Discovery on CBS All Access on Thursdays. Big plug there for the show. I love it. And then also on Fridays, Mandalorian Disney Plus season 2.
Yeah.
So I've been watching that too.
I'm a little behind on Discovery, but I'm all caught up with Mandalorian. Really liking this season so far.
Yeah, and because Mandalorian is so popular right now, and so many people can get it, you absolutely have to watch it as close to Friday when it drops. Otherwise, it'll be spoiled to death online. So
Teddy agrees.
I hear, and maybe the Razor Crest needs an additional passenger. You don't know. But otherwise than that,
he's my own personal Baby Yoda.
Yes. Just watch out if you have any eggs of any kind.
I was about to say he's constantly eating things he shouldn't. At least cookies, the eggs Baby Yoda ate aren't as disgusting as some of the things I try to keep Teddy from eating. So
yeah, but no, that's it, and still continue to plug away at work. We're not traveling for Thanksgiving due to obvious reasons. Normally we would, and we are actually doing the first Thanksgiving here at the house that we've done in a decade. So it's pretty cool, and
awesome.
We will enjoy some time off there. But yeah, that's what's going on, Clay. Thanks so much, man. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So for my plugs, number one, something that I saw, I think over the summer, that I really enjoyed, was the third season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. If you've been keeping up with that show, it's Amy Sherman Palladino, the same showrunner as Gilmore Girls, if you liked that. The first season was great. The second season was kind of here and there. Okay. The third season, I mean, there were definitely some missteps here and there, but by the end, it was great. Amy Sherman Palladino is often criticized for not really taking any sort of stance honestly, for blatantly ignoring issues of racism or LGBT or anything like that. She addresses sexism mostly because all of her characters are women. But especially for a show that takes place in the late 50s and 60s, to be ignoring race issues, kind of a big deal. But she actually addressed them in this season, and it's pretty good. Sterling K. Brown gives one of my favorite performances ever in this season, so definitely check that out. And also, if you're looking for something a little bit more recent, there is I finally caught up with HBO's His Dark Materials, and the new season I think started last weekend. And I liked the first season. I've only seen one episode of the new season, but I will say, immediately after finishing the season, I watched The Golden Compass because I'd never seen it. Very different takes on the story. I mean, it's not a secret. The Golden Compass sucks. There's a reason that there weren't more movies. But it takes. I think the issue is that because the lead character is a child, it was perceived as a children's story, and it's not. It's really not. It's really dark for children. And The Golden Compass really tried to turn it into a children's story, and it's not. But the show's pretty good. I really liked it. But yeah, so those are my things.
Oh, and if I could plug one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
So did you ever read Ready Player One, the book, when that came out?
I did not.
Okay.
I haven't seen the movie either.
I would would recommend reading the book
Okay.
and watching the movie, because coming this week, Ready Player 2.
Oh, really?
Yes, because I like Ernest Cline's books, and the Ready Player One, it has a lot of 80s callbacks.
Sure.
And it's very. Do you know the concept, Clay?
Vaguely.
Okay. Everything takes place in this virtual world called the Oasis, and in fact, the lives of everyone is better with the Oasis. There's a real world, but it's not great.
Right.
So you go to school in the Oasis, everything happens there. Well, the founder of the Oasis dies and does this treasure hunt, and whoever can find these treasures. So it's a giant video game. Wins the keys to the Oasis.
Oh.
Basically. And so it's kind of a big deal. So it's neat, and you follow the protagonist through there. And so there's a Ready Player 2, no context of what's going on. And I really want to see it because I'm a big 80s fan and a big 80s nerd. So
Nice.
I want to see it. And there's so many callbacks because Ernest Cline loves the 80s. So the sequel's coming out for anyone interested there. So there we go.
All right.
For that, there you go. Yeah. Again, sci-fi, reading the books. So maybe Ghostwriter wants to read it with me. Who knows? So.
I mean, he's reading a whole bunch of stuff anyway. I'm sure he wouldn't be against it.
While you're here, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next time we will be back with a, wait for it, time travel episode. Ooh. That's right. And Ghostwriter solves a really important mystery about silverware.
Okay, you had me at time. Me at time travel. May have lost me at silverware.
In the episode, Just in Time.
Ooh,
yes,
interesting.
But thank you so much, Kevin, for being here with me for this episode.
It's my pleasure to thank you, and again, kind of pulling the show out of the mix of things I would normally watch, and expose me to some classic mid '90s kids PBS shows. That's interesting. So thank you so much.
I
Glenn.
mean, there really is nothing better.
Yeah, but please let me know how the time travel episode goes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But I was. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. All kidding aside, it's awesome, and I'm glad I could contribute to furthering the plot of the Ghostwriter. Yeah.
Absolutely. But yes, so like I said, we will be back with the next episode. But until then, Ghostwriter out.
You're not my friend. This is the